Alright guys, this is Zaxter99. Today I'm going to show you what to actually do to make your boneless pork shoulder turn out fantastic for pulled pork. As you can see, it's very cheap. It's way less than hamburgers running right now. Hamburger seems to be up right around $3.69, $4 a pound. And you can make fantastic pork shoulder for just a little over half that cost of hamburger. And I think it's a lot better. Who doesn't want a good pulled pork sandwich? And for half the price of hamburger, I mean, you can't beat it. Here I've bought a whole pork shoulder, paid almost $40 for it, even at $2.49 a pound. Does include a lot of fat and everything like that, but you're going to want to keep all this fat. This is half of it here in the package. The other half is right here. What I've done is I've taken a cookie sheet, I've lined it with saran wrap on the bottom of it, and then I've placed this half of this down. What I've done first is I've ran this all under cold water, opened it up, got all the crevices and creases, rinsed it all off really good, and then use some paper towels to dry it off and blot it off really good so that it's still wet, just a little bit wet. And the reason I wanted a little bit wet is I wanted to rinse it off to clean it off basically. Now in this bowl here, I have what I call my rub, and you can make your rub any way you want with whatever spices you want. Mine consists of probably at least half of this is paprika. You can use smoked paprika, regular paprika, whatever. But a bowl like this, you can see how big my spoon is there. It's about half paprika there. I may even have to make a little bit more because you need a lot of this rub, especially for both pieces of that pork shoulder. Half of this was paprika. Probably about a fourth of it is pepper. Another fourth of it is salt, or preferably sea salt if you have it. And then I've also taken just a little bit of cilantro and put it in there, and just a teeny bit of crushed red peppers. You don't need the cilantro, you don't need the crushed red peppers. The main thing you guys need in here is salt, pepper, and probably mostly paprika. Any other spices you want to add in here, a touch of or whatever, you can certainly do that. If you want to throw in some oregano, if you want to throw in some garlic, whatever, you can certainly do that. Now the next step in preparing your pork shoulder is you want this rub on this meat setting for at least 8 hours. I prefer a full day, so I'm preparing this the day before, the afternoon before. I actually put this in my crock pot to cook. I'm actually going to use the same video that I put out a couple of years ago, because I make the pork shoulder exactly the same way. The only thing I left out of that video was exactly how to make this rub that I've made here and how to apply it to your pulled pork. So the next thing you're going to need is yellow mustard, okay? And what you're going to want to do is you're going to go ahead and apply a good amount of yellow mustard to your pulled pork. Alright, had to get the top off that. So yeah, just any kind of yellow mustard, doesn't need to be Dijon mustard or anything fancy. Save that stuff for the sandwiches. But you're going to want to go ahead and put on a very generous amount of mustard on one side, like that. And then you're going to use your clean hands, and you're going to go ahead and take your hands. Don't be afraid of touching the meat now. Alright, I'm pretty certain that any of you guys that are going to be making this kind of pulled pork have touched meat in other ways, if you know what I mean. So definitely don't be afraid of getting your hands with a little bit of mustard on it. And go ahead and make sure you open it up here as well, and that you get some of this mustard lathered in here on the inside as well. Try to get the creases really, really good. And you want a good amount of mustard on here. What this mustard is going to do is it's not only going to help flavor your pulled pork, but mainly what it's going to do is it's going to help this rub that you've made stick to it. Okay? So that is mainly what it's for. As soon as you touch any kind of raw meat like this, though, you want to make sure that you're washing your hands really, really good. You don't want to get sick from making any of this meat, guys. No matter what kind of meat you're using, if it's raw meat, make sure you're washing your hands really good. Alright, as soon as you got a nice mustardy hand like this, the next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and use your other hand. Your hand won't be holding a camera, hopefully, so you can use your other hand to sprinkle on some of your rub, and go ahead and get that on there, and then use the same hand, you got mustard all over, to spread and rub that rub in. That's why it's called a rub, because you want to rub it into the meat a little bit. So you're going to want to apply this rub. I would get it on the inside first, but I will do that after, as soon as I set this camera down. I will get the inside. I just want to show you guys how to apply this rub once you get the mustard on it and get a nice layer of it. You're going to want to be very, very generous with the amount of rub you have, and you're going to want to go ahead and take it once you sprinkle a good amount on, and you're going to want to completely coat it until all of your meat turns a nice shade of crimson red from that paprika. That means that you've got a nice rub on it. And again, don't just put it on there, guys, and then wrap it up. You want to actually rub this stuff into the mustard, let the mustard and the paprika, that way they help flavor your pulled pork when you cook it the next day or the next morning, whenever you're going to cook it. Again, I would let this rub sit on here in a refrigerator for about 8 hours, at least 8 hours, preferably 12 or more. I usually try to get it in my fridge for at least 18 to 24 hours. So that's basically what your pulled pork is going to look like. Once you got the rub rubbed in, you're going to want to go ahead and get that rub inside all of your meat, down inside all the crevices as well, using both hands. Your hands are going to be really nasty and messy. Be sure you wash them really good once you're completely done. And we'll go ahead and get this both pieces of meat with a rub on them and ready to cook right now. All right, we're back at it. We got both pieces of meat now, mustard and all of our rub completely on here and rubbed in good on both sides and on the inside of each piece of meat. Next step is to wrap up each individual piece of meat with saran wrap. I'm going to need 2 hands to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and get this done. But make sure you're wrapping it up airtight with saran wrap, each piece separately. If you only have one piece, then you only have to wrap up one piece. Alright guys, I got these all wrapped up, both pieces really wrapped up good, and then I've cleaned off my cookie sheet and put a fresh piece of saran wrap on it, just so that no metal touches my bare meat. You don't want that in your refrigerator. Get my other piece here, and just like that. You could even cover this over this with another piece of saran wrap if you wanted to give extra protection. This goes in your fridge at least 8 hours, recommended 12 to 24 hours before you start cooking it. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue with the video that I made a couple of years ago. I'm going to go ahead and add that onto this and show you the rest of the process right now of how you cook this pulled pork. Thanks for watching, guys. Here's the rest of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you what I got here. Once I've actually put this in a crock pot for about 7 hours, 7-8 hours, I'm going to show you what turns up here right now. Alright, I am back with my pork shoulder here, and we're still cooking on low. We've been cooking on low for about 7 hours now. And a couple hours ago I actually took my knife, so the meat was getting tender enough where I could take a knife and basically just cut it up so it would cook faster. And it's starting to get to the point now where it looks like it's pretty tender. So let's just take a look at this and see how well this, what you're looking for with pulled pork is you want the meat tender enough to where it easily pulls apart with 2 forks. So we'll see if we got that now or if we need to wait just a little bit longer. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and see what we got here as far as this pork. And as you can see already, this pork is, a lot of it is just pulling apart. Gotta be careful of all that juice. Now, one thing I've noticed with this pork shoulder before is that you see a lot of juice in here. But what's cool is it looks like you're just going to have a ton of liquid left. But if you pull this meat apart and you let it just continue to cook on low, it will actually like suck up all that juice or most of that juice, and that'll help make it really tender. So it's pretty easy to do this in a crock pot, like I say. And I'm just continuing to work this here with 2 forks, and it's just pretty much falling apart here at this point. What I'm going to try to do is get it apart the best that I can here, and probably add a little bit of seasoning to it. Let it suck up a lot of this this juice in here, and which it will do if you just let it continue to simmer on low for another half hour to an hour, and then you're going to be talking about some good eats. I do like to add a little bit of salt and pepper to it. I've added quite a bit of salt and pepper to the rub, but a lot of that doesn't get on the inside real well, so a little bit more seasoning definitely isn't going to hurt. But the good thing about this pulled pork here is, I mean, even hamburger meat right now, I just paid $3.29 a pound or something like that for 80/20 hamburger meat, and it's very expensive. We just bought this pork shoulder, and I think it was like $1.79 a pound, either $1.69 a pound, $1.79 a pound. Really cheap, and for as good as it is, I mean, to me, this is a lot better than hamburger. I mean, as far as the overall taste when it's done, you know, the only thing is you just got to be a little bit patient. You got to put a rub on it the night before to make it taste good, and you got to slow cook it. Now, I've actually cooked pulled pork. I used to smoke it outside, but I mean, that uses a lot of propane or a lot of charcoal or whatever method you're using to smoke it, and to me, it just doesn't pay off quite as much as maybe smoking a brisket or smoking some ribs or something like that. To me, you know, just do this inside. Use a crock pot like this and just slow cook it inside and add some, you know, spices and stuff like that, and it's going to be, you know, out of this world good. And it can't be any easier. You know, you don't have to go check on this all the time like you would if it was outside on a smoker or something. And you just continue to. I cut it up, like I say, you know, about after 4 or 5 hours, I start cutting it up into some pieces to help it cook faster. And then after looks like about 7 or 8 hours, just depending on the size of your pork shoulder and everything, it's just going to start falling apart just like this. And you know, I don't know if you can start seeing how good that is, but as you can see, as I'm shredding this pork shoulder, all that moisture that was in there before, I mean, is starting to be sucked up by the meat as it's being shred apart. So what that means is it just means that it's going to be all that more tender when you go and take a bite. Okay, while I continue to shred this just a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more seasoning. And to do that, I'm probably going to add some salt. Remember, you got quite a bit of meat there, so you're going to want to, you know, not be stingy on your spicing. Just want to mix it in well, that's all. And got any of that organic seasoning from Costco or something similar, definitely recommend that. You could put a little brown sugar in here to kind of sweeten the taste up just a little bit, and I think I might do that. Just doesn't take a lot of brown sugar, but I'm going to go ahead and add probably just a handful of brown sugar to it, just to give it a hint of sweetness. And that there is probably about a half a cup, maybe a little bit more than a half a cup of brown sugar. And we're talking about 6 pounds of meat there. That's about six and a half pounds of meat. Okay, we've got our brown sugar, a little more pepper in here, a little more salt, some more organic seasoning that I like to buy from Costco, Kirkland organic seasoning. Stuff is so good on so many different things. And I do what I want to do, because this is getting torn up and starting to suck up all that moisture, like I said. What I want to do is I want to let it cook maybe another 30 minutes to an hour. Just continue, you know, cooking it on low. But what I want to do is just mix in well all that pepper and salt and organic seasoning and the brown sugar that I added to it. Get that all melded in well so that those flavors can start working throughout the meat. And I mean, once you get it to this point, it's really not even tearing the meat apart with forks anymore. It's just stirring it, and the stuff just falls apart as you stir it. I mean, that's how tender this meat is. And it couldn't be any easier. Like I say, throw it in a crock pot and just let it set for 8 hours on low. Don't ever turn it higher than low. You don't want to try to cook this stuff fast, or you're not going to get this end result. Pulled pork is just not something that you cook fast. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cover this back up, and I'm going to let that continue to cook for probably another 30 minutes before I eat. But as you can see, looking at it now, most of that moisture that was in there, that was over the top of that meat before, is now gone. It's being sucked up by that meat, and that is just a fantastic pulled pork. Gonna make a fantastic pulled pork sandwich. Alright, I'm ready to go ahead and make me a sandwich out of this pulled pork. Just gonna put me on just a little bit of mayonnaise on each slice of bread. Alright, it's actually going to be some of this absolutely outstanding pulled pork we've got going here. Notice all that juice that was, like I said before, was overflowing the meat has now been completely sucked up by the meat. I promise you, I haven't actually sucked it up with a straw or anything. It actually does go right into that meat when you do it just like this. Put me a nice little generous helping of meat on that bread. Cover my meat back up. Now here's where, if you had any coleslaw or you wanted to put a slice of tomato on there, maybe some onion, would be real good. I think it's going to be fine just like that. I just can't wait to take a bite out of this. And looking at that, you can see that that is going to be a delicious pulled pork sandwich right there. That homemade honey wheat bread and home cooked crock pot style pulled pork. Can't describe to you how good this actually is. And the only thing I can tell you is to go home or go out and get you a pork shoulder. Put that rub on it overnight like I showed you. Mostly pepper, salt, and paprika. Anything else you want to add. Refrigerate it overnight at least 8 to 12 hours. Then put it in a crock pot in the morning. Put it in by about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. By 6 p.m. you're going to have some nice pulled pork just like this. About mid-afternoon, cut it up in pieces, help it cook out, help it cook better, and then start just pulling it apart right around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Should be ready for you, and you're going to have yourself a nice pulled pork sandwich just like this. Be sure you leave your comments, questions, suggestions below. I'd like to read all those. If you want to subscribe, feel free to do so. And for that, signing off, Zaxter99.